So from the field of science, that brings you words like Mesoproterozoic, Ornithomimosaur, and Micropachycephalosaur. We also get the very scientific sounding term, the Thagomizer. This one's gonna be a fun footnote, y'all. So before we talk about what the Thagomizer is, you have to know what animal it pertains to. And today we are going to be talking about Stegosaurs. Now, most of you probably know what a Stegosaurus is, and those are the big dinosaurs that have the big plates on their back and the spiky tails. Weirdly enough, there's actually 3 different species of Stegosaurus, but the Stegosaurs are a whole group of these types of animals, and they include things like the Kentrosaurus that has huge spikes sticking out of its shoulders, and the Chunkingosaurus and Hesperosaurus. So there's lots of different Stegosaurs. Anyway, we don't know what those plates on their back were for. There's some guesses. One paleontologist actually guessed that they were for flying, which we know is not true. But other guesses are that they're for thermal regulation or maybe defense or maybe mating displays, but we don't know for sure. But one thing that Stegosaurs do have that we know what it's for is that spiky tail. And those spikes on the end of their tail were definitely for defense. And we know that because we've seen fossils of Allosaurus, which is kind of like a T-Rex of that era. And these allosaurs have spike-shaped holes in the fossils. One of them has a spike-shaped hole in one of the tail vertebrae, and it looks like it healed up and that dinosaur was fine. But another one of these allosaurs has a spike-shaped hole in its pelvis, and paleontologists are pretty sure that this poor guy walked around with like a gaping pus-filled wound for a few weeks until he finally died. So anyway, we know those things are for defense, and those things, what scientists call them, are Thagomizers. So where did this crazy term Thagomizer come from? It actually came from a Gary Larson Far Side cartoon. So if you are of a certain age, I'm sure you remember the Far Side cartoons. And this particular cartoon, I can't show you because of copyright, but basically it was one panel and it had a caveman doing a presentation to the other cavemen, and on the projector screen he had a picture of the spiky tail of a stegosaur, and he said, now this end is called the Thagomizer after the late Thag Simmons. Well, it was just kind of a funny cartoon, but in 1993 there was a paleontologist called Ken Carpenter, and he was doing a presentation to the Society of Vertebrate Paleontologists, and he used the term Thagomizer when he was referring to a stegosaur tail, and it just kind of stuck. Now all sorts of institutions use this term in actual scientific papers to refer to the spiky end of a stegosaur tail. So institutions like the BBC, Dinosaur National Monument, the Smithsonian, all of them have used the term Thagomizer, and you can actually even find it in scientific journals and papers, all because of this random Far Side cartoon. Anyway, mathematicians have also picked up on the Thagomizer, and because the Thagomizer now refers to the spiky tail of a stegosaur, there are certain graphs that tend to make spikes, and mathematicians now call them Thagomizer graphs. So, thanks, Gary Larson.